we're going live now. So you can see the button in the top left where it says live on YouTube. So now, since you're not the host, you can click on that and you can view stream on YouTube. And I'm going to make you host. Yes. And then, so now when you click on that button, you have the option to stop the live stream. So maybe if you wanted to do that before you have like your final comments with your students after the guest presenters say their final remarks. But I would just click stop before you end the meeting. Because if you don't, it'll just like be like this continual void. I don't know. It's weird.
Stop before ending. Okay.
Yep. But yeah, you should be good to go. And then in the meantime, you can just like turn your camera off and then just let the live stream just be like continue. Cool.
Great. Thanks, Nick.
Fantastic. See you later.
Bye. Good morning, Errol. Oh, you're on mute.
Hello, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you so much for joining us.
So these are first year or second year students?
So these are relative, they're first year students. Well, my students are in different years, but the class is considered in the first year. So that's why it's their first major design studio.
Are these undergrads or grads?
They are undergrads.
Undergrad, okay, all right. Very good. And you're I was reading what the thing you sent. Are the students participating in this right now, or are we?
There will be there. Some of them are already in.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay.
And then we are also. This is also live streamed on YouTube at the moment.
Yes.
So,
yes. Right.
So people are able to see.
Well, I'm sorry we haven't met. I mean, I know about you and of you, but we haven't actually met face to face. So that's to come.
I know, and that's the challenge of the pandemic.
Yes, yes, oh yes.
And I will.
Are you at school?
No, I'm at home right now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. We're still waiting for.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes according to the plan.
Right. So Errol, are you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Are Naomi going to be taking part in this? I see her picture.
She'll be taking some photos for.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted. You were about to say something.
No, Errol, I was just gonna say, like, how's your semester going?
Well, it's going pretty well. I have a very reduced role of a semester. I'm only teaching one class, so but it went well, I think, and you know, as well as it could. It was all online, and we had a lot of guests, which was fun. But was, you know, there's nothing like seeing people, being in front of people and getting to know them. You know, a lot of these people out in my class I didn't know at all and never met. And but there were things about the Zoom teaching that I liked a lot, and but the in-person experience wasn't one of them.
It's really strange teaching
Really, yeah,
studio.
it really is, yeah.
Mhm. And then we will be joined by Michael also as one of the
And I've never
reviewers.
met Michael either. I feel like I've met you because I've seen your picture so many times, but I've not never shaken hands. So one of these days.
That's what I was thinking also, like starting this new role also, and not being able to meet people in person. It
No, I
was,
know. Very
and
weird.
connecting
Yep.
was really
Very, very
challenging.
strange. What time will this session end this morning?
Because we have 8 students who are presenting and with the discussion, so not more than 50, not more than 15 minutes per person. So within 2 hours, before 11, maybe like
Okay, good, because
11,
I have a noon meeting, so but that's fine.
we should be done. We should be done before
Great.
noon. So we'll try to. I'll be the timekeeper, so I'll try to.
Right. And you've decided you decided not to have them deal with the exterior of the building at all, exterior of the space, only the interior planning.
That's right.
It's interesting because it would really be, in a lot of ways, it would be I mean, architects do this, of course, but exhibition designers would be tending to be the taking the lead on this.
That's true. It's I decided to really just focus it internally and really treat it as most as interior space. We did not even consider any windows at all.
Yeah.
And
What about the ceiling height? Is there what's the height allowable?
so the ceiling height, I also gave them a little bit more liberty, but we kept it around 2022.
And could you have a second level in this place?
No,
Okay.
so we also simplified it. No stairs.
Okay, yeah. That makes
because
sense.
because it's their first
Right. Well, what were
design.
they doing last semester if this is the first design thing?
They were also doing doing models, like
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
foundational
Yes.
2D to 3D.
Yep.
And then this semester also we started off also with a tool that they also drew by hand,
Yes.
and then they also then translated digitally. So it was building up
Yeah.
towards that of
Right.
understanding.
Right. Yeah. Right. I was on a couple of those reviews earlier, so I remember now.
And they've really risen up to the challenge, given that, for example, this design was 3 weeks.
It's short. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
short.
Right.
But that's how you are as a designer. You try to come up with ideas, in such a short time.
Right. Yes. And this is stuff that from the collection of the what's the branch of Tulane where all these specimens are? What is that? It's part of the biology department?
So they've looked at different archives from across the campus. Some are from the Newcomb Tulane collection. Some are from the special collections of the archives.
Right.
And then there are some, but I also gave them a little bit more liberty, and so they've also.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. So.
They've also used the other examples that are not necessarily part of the Tulane collection, but
right. Because part of the challenge for the students is actually a concept for, well, I mean, a collection, what you want to show as well as how to show it. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for a couple more people, but just to already give you a heads up, we are live streaming on YouTube. So if I don't know if you want to send your parents, sending the link. trying to see if this is, I think this is public. It should be public. So I don't know if you have questions before we start. Let's just wait for a couple more minutes.
I just have a random question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Catherine.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I'm using different headphones so I didn't know if the speaker worked on these. That was all.
Okay. So we have our guest reviewer, Errol Barron here. But I'll introduce him and Michael also in a minute. So I don't know if you have other questions before we start. I'll just remind everyone you'll have 3 minutes to introduce your project, and then we have about 9 minutes, 10 minutes for question and answer and for feedback. Okay.
Tell me again, how many square feet? The 20,000 in the space? Is that right? Did I remember that correctly? Yeah.
So the building alone is 120 feet by 120 feet.
Okay, got it.
But they looked at between 60 to 50% of this space for the exhibition, and the other part is mostly for back of house.
Right.
So we ignored the back of house for now. We did not provide any of the bathrooms.
And I think this was in your notes, but where is this in relation to the campus? Is it somewhere nearby, or could you walk to it?
No. Well, yeah, no, you can't walk to it. It's on Piety Wharf.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, right. I forgot. Yes.
And
You could walk to it if you live nearby.
Right. And it was we chose like a one part of the wharf where
Right.
there's an existing a pad with the but it doesn't exist, so we assumed that there was going to be almost like a warehouse building,
Yes.
which then they could have the archives.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is, I would assume the traffic is very light traffic, right?
Right. Jane is not here. Okay, and let's just wait for Michael to come in. But for those who's joining us now, just wanted to let you know that we are live streaming on YouTube. So if you want to share the link to your parents or friends, you're welcome to do so. I don't know, Alec, if you can still see it because you joined. Let me just put it in the chat again. Okay, so Michael said that he is coming in a bit late, so maybe we can start.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Let me introduce our guest reviewer for today, and let us thank Professor Errol Barron, who's joining us. He is the Favreau Professor of Architecture in the School of Architecture, and he is an architect. He's a painter, a photographer. His works has been exhibited in various museums, such as the Ogden Museum, the Yes, the Louisiana Museum of Art, the Bakersville Museum of Art, the LSU Gallery, and others. And so he has his work has been highly regarded, and he has also done, of course, several buildings in the region. And he teaches studio this semester, third year studio. Is that right, Errol? Or drawing?
No, I wasn't teaching. No, I didn't not teach a studio this semester. Last year I did. I taught the comprehensive studio.
Comprehensive studio.
Not this year.
And so we would like to thank Errol for joining us. And as I've said, each of the students will have about 3 minutes to present, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for question and answer. And then once Michael joins us, then I will introduce him in the middle of the review. But we will start from left to right on concept board. So if I can then just share my screen. Is that okay?
That's fine, because when I tried to join concept board this morning and yesterday, I couldn't figure out how to do it. It asked for password, and I put every password I know, and nothing works. So
okay. So I'll navigate then to concept board so you can see.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll start with Ayelet first. Is that okay, Ayelet? And then we'll go from left to right on concept board. So I can just share my screen. We are, and then you can just tell me, Ayelet, also like how I'll go through. Okay. Share. Can you see my screen? Okay, Ayelet, go ahead. Oops, sorry.
So this exhibition I called Mike because even though it's a little bit like funny, I guess, to call Michelangelo Mike, I thought it would be a nice introduction to this exhibition because it features not only his work, but also modern interpretations of his work. So in my designs, I really focused on classical details that could be taken from his architectural works, like a dome, for example, but also having kind of a mix between modern shapes and figures inside of that, because the whole front portion of the exhibition kind of features like a modern Renaissance area where there's a lot of modern interpretations of his work. And in the back, where all of his work is exhibited, I really focused on kind of showcasing his sculptures and works in a new way. So in the concept diagram, you can see how you're walking through it. In the front portion on both sides is the modern interpretations of his work, and in the back is his sculptures and some of his painted works that I designed like a new way to exhibit the ones that you can import, like the Sistine Chapel, Creation of David, which in my sections you can see are projected on to these like sheets. So you kind of start in the middle and you walk through, depending on how someone would choose to walk through this building. Either you get kind of a preview of how this exhibition is going to be with the modern art, or you kind of circle back to it and see it later after you see all of Michelangelo's sculptures and works to see how it's been interpreted over time. And yeah, I really focused on kind of that crossover between modern and classical architecture and detailing, and especially in the way that I'm showcasing the work. So in the exploded axon, you can see that there's a drop ceiling and a dome, and the dome is kind of the key like structural or architectural element of my exhibition, because David's right underneath the dome. So I also wanted to include arcs in different places. So there's an archway in the front where the receptionist desk is, and you kind of walk through it to get to the back to see his work. And there's a skylight in the dome, which I kind of focused in on to play with the lighting, because how David is displayed now, like in real life, is very bright and open. So I wanted to see how I could play around with that in different ways, and if I can incorporate different lighting and showcase him again in a new way. But in the perspective, you can see David's right underneath the dome, and you can kind of see a preview of that sheet display of projecting his work onto kind of a sheet, because you can't cut out the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And yeah, that's my project.
Wait, what did you say about the Sistine Chapel?
That you can't cut the ceiling out of the Sistine Chapel. So I wanted to find a new creative way to display some of his painted works that you can't actually import into New Orleans.
What is the box right in the middle that looks like you can go into it, but
In the middle, that's the receptionist desk and a little coat
got it.
closet.
I got it. Yeah, okay. Can we start asking questions, or do you have, is that, if you finished?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Were these things that you're exhibiting, were they meant to be, I mean, I don't want to be too realistic about this. I know it's a student project, but are these the actual artifacts, or are they copies of actual artifacts?
They're meant to be the real ones. Obviously, this is kind of a
Yeah.
make-believe, because David isn't going to be imported into New Orleans anytime soon. But
Right.
I had a lot of fun with choosing and kind of displaying it, because
Because it
obviously
does, the dynamics of the whole thing are radically altered if it's real stuff, because I mean, you can imagine people would be coming from far and wide to see it. And
right.
but you could, I don't know. So I guess my question is, it's why is it symmetrical? I mean, what was the idea there? Because when you come in, I mean, which way do you go?
Mhm.
Very often in these exhibitions, there is a kind of, not necessarily a prescribed path, but a kind of obvious direction to go to keep the flow moving and so on and so forth. But here it's symmetrical. Why did you do that?
So in the beginning, I was playing around with floor plans. I had some asymmetrical ones, and it seemed to kind of minimize the grandeur of Michelangelo's work and all the ones that I came up with. And so I thought that dividing it this way would be a kind of interesting flow, because there are different options on how you can walk through the space. And I wanted it to be a little more open without it necessarily being like an open concept. So when you walk in, you can either go see Michelangelo's work right away and then kind of get some context afterwards, seeing the modern art display, or you can walk in, see the modern art display and get that kind of preview before you go into Michelangelo's work, so that you have pre-context and it all kind of works together to feed the narrative. So I thought that it would be
Where his work begins in the back portion of the project. Mhm. And these are modern interpretations that you on the left and right when you first come in.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, did you give any thought? I mean, I know this is all highly make believe, but that you know, you're going from outside to inside, and the door. I mean, I'm just thinking about general planning principles that one would employ in something like this. If it's raining, for example, I don't want to get too practical here, but if it's raining, how do you? There's no transition space from the outside to the inside, which would seem like would be kind of a nice thing to have, with all of these rare objects inside. What was your thinking there?
Well, I feel like in this building specifically, it would make sense to kind of have some like roof or transition area on the outside, because the inside space, like right when you walk in, should was meant to be very open. But because we weren't designing the outside,
Right.
I didn't tap into that.
And again, the shaded area, that's the back of house that you all are not planning at all.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Can
Well, I
I
mean,
also?
my reaction, I mean, my critical response would be that, you know, that again, you'd have to know a little bit more about the things that you encounter first, but the symmetry of the thing strikes me as being somewhat limiting in terms of the way. I know you're thinking of giving people an option when they come in, but you know, and generally speaking, in exhibition design, there's really there's a kind of a path that is implied that you don't have to follow it, but it's you know, because you want to present the material in a way that has a kind of, you know, if not a story, then a kind of theatricality to it that leads up to, you know, you've got this major piece under the skylight, and you know, presumably that's kind of the main draw. And so how you would get to that, those would be things that I think a designer would normally really take into consideration, you know.
In the concept diagram, you can also see the movement that I've kind of implied into the space.
Yeah, I know, but as a practical matter, I think when you come in, your destination will be slightly thwarted by an option to go left or right, and you wouldn't know which way to go or why you would go one way or the other. I mean, I think many people would tend to just go straight back, you know, and miss the front stuff. Could happen anyway.
I'd like to interrupt also because Michael Dalemole joined us.
Good.
Michael, I'm not sure like how much you saw, but I just wanted to welcome you to the class. Just want to let everyone know Michael is an adjunct lecturer in the Tulane School of Architecture. He also manages the shop, but he was also the founder and also the co-director of Goodwood, which is a New Orleans-based business focusing on woodworking, millwork, and design and build projects. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I'm late, y'all, but I'm here now, ready to review.
You'll be punished later. Hello, Michael. We've never met, but it's nice to see you.
It's nice to meet you, Errol.
Yes, yes.
So I don't know, Michael, if you were able to see the early part, and I don't know if you want to comment, but you're welcome to also maybe give comments if you want to.
I'm so sorry I did not catch the beginning of this, but I'm enjoying the form factor of what I'm looking at, and so I can at least say that much.
Okay. Oh, Errol, you were saying? Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, no, I was saying that I think to me one of the drawbacks of this scheme is its high degree of symmetry, and that I think in exhibition design there's usually a kind of a path that's implied that's leading up to it's a kind of story that unfolds as you go through the space, and in a way to present or a kind of option of a symmetry, and you could go this way or that way, and the things are basically, I mean, no, the exhibits are different, but spatially it's rather it's the same kind of thing. I don't know how you would know to go that way, or why would you be drawn to the right or to the left as opposed to just going straight ahead and see what's ahead. In other words, I think in a way the symmetry works against the story that you might be telling in this exhibit.
Okay. Thank you, Ayelet.
Thank you.
Unless you have other questions, Ayelet, maybe?
No, I'm
Ayelet,
okay.
where are you from?
I'm from Chicago.
Chicago. So you've been in the Institute and you've been in the big museums in Chicago.
Yes.
So I mean, you probably the next time you go, this may make you think more critically about how other people have done it, and because I think in general, for me, one of the underlying principles of exhibition design is that there's you are telling a story. It kind of unfolds as you go through. And I think, I mean, personally, I may be wrong about this, but I think the idea of presenting the visitors with a symmetrical experience right in the beginning will work against the storytelling a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ayelet. Let's move on to our next presenter, Estefania.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Estefania, and I'm going to present you my exhibition titled Voyage of Enlightenment, which aim to portray work of art from the 5 continents that seem to be divided but are united by sea. And furthermore, even though the cultures and type of artwork from each continent may be different from one another, there are multiple factors that unite them all, as the human experience and the ability to create art, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And beforehand, the exhibition is divided in 5 zones. Each represents a continent and displays pieces from various artists whose homeland are in the specific continent displayed. The zones are numbered after following the movement pattern that is depicted in the right diagram that you see there. However, it is important to know that that is one of the multiple ways in which one can tour the exhibition. Like after passing the ticketing zone, people can go in the direction they like, as the wide exhibition space allow visitors to do so. And moreover, based on the evidence that human beings evolved in Africa and that every human being can track their genetic lineage back to this continent, the floor plan displays Africa in the middle and the other continents around where human beings migrated through time. And besides this, the Asia and the America zones are slightly bigger in the plan than the Europe and the Oceania zones. And this is directly related to the actual continent size order, being Asia and America bigger than Europe and Oceania. We can also perceive, like in the exploded oblique, I think it's better appreciated, like that the exhibition has a wave ceiling, and this represents the sea that unites all the continents, as mentioned earlier. And below this wave ceiling, like smaller waves are suspended, which make the ceiling experience more accurate and natural. And in the 2 building sections, like they enable the viewer to better also visualize the ceiling concept and their voyage through the different continents.
Where's that section there taken? The one that where's that taken? Right through the middle?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Oh, I see it. Sorry.
Also in the, like the brown floor in the four perspectives represents the continent's ground.
Okay, we have time for questions.
I had a quick question about the image that's on the screen right now and the horizontal slots. The top two appear to be, out of the line of sight. They're just decorative, or are they meant for exhibition?
Like the one of the middle.
Yeah, that one. You couldn't
Yeah,
really
they
see
are meant for
it.
exhibition.
How would you see it? It looks like it's above your eyesight.
It's like the exhibition is on the right and on the left of the booth. So when you pass, it's like the art is exhibited there, as you see, like the little objects that
Yeah.
are illustrated.
And I just meant the horizontal voids and those things. Are they for exhibition also?
Yes.
How would you see something exhibited in the top one?
Yeah, I thought about, like, I wanted to be in different levels, what you can, like, could appreciate. But now that I think about it, maybe the upper one is too high.
Might be too high, but you could have an upper one, but maybe it wouldn't be that shape. It might be
Yes.
bigger. It might be, and you could have things that would be, things that might be better viewed from below. But I think, just to treat it as, to give it the same shape as the ones that are down low is a little bit of a mistake, because I think you couldn't see very well. Just like the very bottom one, you'd have to, unless you were a child, you'd have to get down on your hands and knees to see what was down there. Because I think in general, you want to, this relates to the comment I had about the other one, you want the experience to be kind of natural. You want it to flow in a way that seems logical, and I think none of these are really at eye level, unless you're a very short person or a very tall person. Now these are different. I mean the ones that are cut into the wall.
Yeah, that zone is the only one that I put those, like, booths.
Oh, okay. Where's the top image taken from in the plan?
Could you repeat the question, please?
That image where your arrow is, where is that in the plan? Where, if you were, show me the plan and where that drawing is taken. Oh, right there. So you come in and you look through an opening, you see something beyond that you're going to. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
the African continent, the one in the middle, the one you first see when you enter.
Yeah. I think that's nice. You look through a window and you see, oh, I'm going there. So yeah, it sort of raises the curiosity a bit, And you also have quite a bit of circulation. If you took all the area where all that, if you just totaled that up, it'd be one of the largest spaces in your exhibition. And there are no objects to see in that space.
No, just in the rooms that are, like, more closed.
Because someone might argue that if you took all that space where your arrow is going and you added that all up, it would be it'd probably be the largest single volume in your plan. So, and it has nothing in it. So you might want to think about ways if when you're in that space of being able to see the objects more, maybe by cutting holes through the walls or having in the exhibition in the circulation space as well as in the galleries. I'm thinking of a curator, who's criticizing the architect. You know how this would work, don't you? I mean, the architect would be hired to work with the curator about the exhibitions, and you wouldn't be doing this entirely on your own. It would be a little bit of a team effort,
Yeah.
I would completely agree with Errol. I think the it's very aesthetically pleasing, but I don't know if it makes as much sense for exhibition. It seems like you are trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're maybe trying to create a bit of a differentiation from room to room as it relates to what's being exhibited, and therefore I can understand your thought process behind reducing any form of exhibition while walking from room to room. However, it feels maybe limiting to do that, especially considering what to echo what Errol said earlier about, I believe it was that main room, which is supposed to resemble Africa, that has the horizontal displays, which again are definitely in questionable locations. The two top shelves, I'll call them, are almost impossible to view for most people. And then you also have to remember the ergonomics of the human body and how when we travel through spaces, if you're constantly lifting your head and turning and dipping down and kneeling, it becomes less of a pleasurable experience.
Great. Any last comments for Estefania?
Let's look at the plan as the last the image. I like the idea that you're trying to articulate the ceiling in some way, although I don't really know how. What you really need is something called a reflected ceiling plan. That's a technical term. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's a device used in architecture to show the plan of the ceiling exactly in relation to the plan of the floor. So it's as though there was a mirror on the floor. So you look down, you're seeing the ceiling. So you can coordinate the ceiling with the floor. And I mean, you're kind of doing it three-dimensionally, but I don't, I don't know how, like, I don't really, the three-wave ceiling, where does that occur? No, in plan. Where's the three-wave ceiling?
Like the wave ceiling.
The suspended ceiling, Estefania.
Yeah, it's like.
But what part of the plan is it over? Is it over the whole thing?
Over the whole plan, exactly.
Oh, okay. And so the other little roofs are underneath that big roof?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I see. Well, I think that would probably get changed and as the design got refined, because you would, oh, I see them now. Okay, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's like the wave.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Sorry. It's like the wave ceiling is in all the plan, and the suspended waves that are smaller are divided in the different rooms.
No, I see. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah, very good.
Estefania. So let us move to Jane. Jane, are you there?
She's
Jane.
escaped.
I'm so sorry. My earbuds broke this morning, so I was like muting and unmuting because I didn't like hear it and be interrupted in their critiques. I was just like downloading my stuff to make sure I had like a backup in case concept.
Oops.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Grant just gave me his headphones. I'm so sorry, y'all. I know it's like so.
Don't worry, Jane. Just
One second.
okay. It's okay.
Can you all hear me now? Is that working?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Definitely.
so sorry again about that.
No need to
They like
apologize,
broke us up on the
Jane.
way to studio. Hi, my name is Jane. I'll be presenting on my museum plan, which is called the Glass Menagerie. So the original idea behind this entire structure was kind of embodying the transition from newer, more early American pieces towards modernism throughout the last 100 years and into the 21st century. So a lot of my original pieces are also constructed from very salt of the earth, filtered materials such as metals, woods, and glasses that we've had for the last hundreds of years. And then moving towards more innovative materials in the Eames chair collection, newer plastics and newer ways of manufacturing woods materials to make them morph to what you are desiring in your pieces. And then moving ultimately towards a bunch of Koons pieces, which not only embody the more modern pop culture aspect, but also embody the use of very, very modern materials, as he would have his plans sent off to factories to make these large scale pieces that embodied pop culture and kind of this like niche combination of fine art and low culture, or more like kitschy culture of the time. And in my transition through the museum, I also made sure to have the chronology increase as you move through, so moving from older objects and older materials to newer ones, but also at the same time increasing in size. Every section covered with some sort of with a larger increase in the larger glass dome until you ultimately get to the end. And then also, as you move through, no matter which way you go in the first place, the doors that lead to the center room become wider as you move through, so that you can kind of start to get a glimpse of what is ultimately at the center, which you will come back to eventually, kind of hinting at that final destination. Yeah, so this is my floor plan. And so the largest Koons piece, which is kind of the epitome of my movement through the museum, is the Peppy, which is this giant statue made out of these flower arrangements. It's really cool, which will be like sitting in that very large circle. And then I would have 3 more sculpture-like Koons pieces in the front, just to get a kind of sense of what you will automatically be seeing. And then in the center, you also end with 3 larger scale Koons pieces. But if you go straight up, it also increases in size.
Is that the drawing of the ceilings over each of the?
Yes. So the outer domes are all, so the entire roof is glass, but the outer part is these domed glass globes, and then they kind of indent in the center towards that piece right there. And then the front lobby is also this large glass piece. So they're all domed, but the center is indented. So as you move back towards the center room, it will be a flat roof, but it will also be glass, which is also a choice that I made because I was playing with the reflective quality of many of my pieces, which even the older pieces, the glasses and metals are reflective, and I thought it would add to the experience of those.
So is that room with the Koons pieces there? I guess they're not all Koons, but anyway, with the center, is that kind of the culmination of the spatial sequences that center room? That's the main space, kind of.
Yes, it's kind of like you're moving towards the largest dome, but then the kind of end of the actual tour is the center space.
Mm-hmm.
Could you go back to the plan, Jane?
While we're looking at that, just and when you come in, which direction do you go?
Mm-hmm.
You enter from the bottommost part, which is kind of a lobby-ish area, but also the first room, and then you can go in either direction. That circle is only there because it's to indicate there's a dome there, but you can go in either direction and then fled back into the center room, and then on every corner of that center room, there are doors towards the outside rooms. So you can enter towards the center from any of these rooms. And then also ultimately you can enter from the very back room.
And when you say there are doors, are there literal doors or are these just openings?
Sorry, there are openings, yeah. The front has sliding glass doors, but the rest of the exhibit just has open sections for you to enter through.
I really love the shape, and just the plan in general is really beautiful, but I feel like it feels very busy, and it feels like it would be quite congested. And I was hoping you would say that there would be physical doors going into the middle, just because I feel like that would help indicate that you are that you are meant to walk around the exhibit and to kind of dip into the center room as you see fit while you are traveling through. However, having those just being openings and egresses, so to speak, I have a feeling that people would find themselves getting a little confused in this space, traveling through it. It doesn't feel like it is suggesting anything to me. It feels almost like it would be just kind of a free for all in that space. And at the same time, I do want to say I find the general shape of your plan to be really appealing, and I think it's a creative form. But I would find this to be a little bit of a congested layout. Yeah.
Well, and then this goes back to the comments we were making on the first one. By having the direction, you could go either way. You're going to be bumping into people going one way when you're going the other way, so it contributes to the confusion. I mean, I think you could improve this plan considerably by giving it a direction, because you kind of said you were almost thinking that maybe spatially there was a sort of process of discovery of going from one room to another. So that implies directionality, I think, and probably, yeah, I think it's a little bit too much going on, and maybe in the center, that might be a nice place to have nothing, where there's a kind of a relief from all the detail in the other rooms.
I completely agree with all of that. I think that center room would have been a wonderful opportunity for you to create some empty space, just to create something less visually busy for all of the viewers. I also think that if we're talking about utilization of space and exhibiting a certain amount of pieces that need to be exhibited in a certain amount of space, you could also have potentially closed off one of the other access points to one of the rounded rooms and forced people to walk through the middle at one given point. And that could maybe allow for more succinct flow through the space. But this does, actually, would you mind maybe showing me a couple different sections so that I could see in relation to the size of someone traveling through the space? So Jane, would you mind telling me when while you were designing this, when did you see people traveling through that center room?
At the end of the exhibit, like I saw them moving through the sides and then towards the center and then back out towards the sides, I guess. But I know that objectively, I think as I'm listening to you, it sounds a lot more confusing than it should be. I originally had the front area also a door to the center, which I closed off to try and kind of force people to go either way, but I get that directionality is kind of going to end up obviously in a collision of some sort. It's also very confusing, so that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, no, I was expecting them to go into it last in my original plan.
Yeah, I think a really good rule of thumb for any kind of exhibition design, I think, is to assume that people will have no idea where to go. And it's really important for you as the designer to indicate that through, I mean, I would say that the easiest way would be to implement signage, but I'm assuming we're trying to avoid that and look for more of a natural, more of an indicative flow that is based on the space itself. And so I would say, while I love a lot about the form, and I love the dome ceilings. I hope you have a huge budget for this project. But I would also say that I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of directional flow. It feels a little confusing to me, but it's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, the domed, I mean, I guess you're thinking about giving these rooms a kind of special spatial character, but the domed ceilings are, they have acoustical problems, domes they produce very weird focused sounds in them. So probably, and that can be overcome, but then it's just, it's an interesting idea that you would do that. And then the last one, the big one, has the dome. And now that dog is made of flowers. Did you know that? Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, we need a lot of light to keep them from withering. And then the poor little dog, he's looking right. His nose is only like 4 feet from the wall. I mean, so it seems like he should be looking out on something. I don't know. I'm very partial. Yeah, because. I'm bringing in a design consultant here. That's a West Highland Terrier, and I happen to have one of those dogs.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Jane.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think Alec.
Yep. Okay, so my museum plan focuses on ancient Egypt, and I like to call it the Isle of Thoth, given the appreciation of the Greek god that is surrounding our garden district and a lot of New Orleans. The crew of Thoth is a very big part of the city.
What is the word?
Thoth, he's like the half bird god.
That's pronounced Toth.
Oh, Toth. Okay,
Toth.
my bad. Toth. But the biggest thing is that Toth was said that he couldn't be part of all of the Egyptian activities. So a lot of people in the city believe that they're not necessarily welcome at all of the parades, at least in the past, but they take ownership in a certain amount of them. And I thought this was a really good opportunity to explore a little bit more about Egyptian culture and some trademark artifacts that really don't make it out of major cities. So that's where I started. So I have 4 different zones. You have the first zone that's mainly just an entranceway and gazebo, and parts of front of house. And then section 2 and 3 focuses on two different types of Egyptian eras, and section 4 is mainly back of house, but has a section of textiles as well. So this is the plan, and the space is very diagonal and messes with ceiling heights in a lot of different ways to play to it. But it flows pretty seamlessly, and these walls that are offset in the front allow so that you don't necessarily see anything as you walk into the space. But you can see like from partial angles, so like it allows like an area of intrigue, which I really liked. So this is a section, so that the roof is both indented and slanted downward, and every single wall in the entire space is on the exact same angle. And it's kind of to just complement all of the different height structures and just make you feel a little bit more open as you walk through the space. As you can see in this section, we have everything kind of laid out, two different pyramids, and then these two walls on the sides provide a great space to hold different types of artifacts. Oh yeah, so this is an exponent axon. So you can see the roof is both tilted and slant and indented, and all that space is blocked off for back of house, all the black space. In my first perspective, I thought it was important to show the traditional headdress along with an ankh, which is an Egyptian symbol for life. So it's like a royal symbol and their symbol of life right upon entry. I thought it would be quite welcoming to a viewer. And this kind of shows the exhibit in action on that scale where you see those two people looking down. You have two specific Egyptian pieces of jewelry of that given time period, and then on the wall of that diamond shape, you have a textile. Here's another angle. This is more zoned out towards the edge. You have a picture of a different type of traditional headdress. And here's a picture of the textiles. So as the roof comes up, you have it able to accommodate to like the size of these things. And the idea is that this, as you get around the first wall of the entryway from the center and back, you should be able to see all of this in its like height order, which should be pretty aesthetically pleasing. And here's a more narrowed view on the exhibit. There's 4 different types of headdresses and some artifacts there as well.
Where is this section taken? Is that through the front door?
Yeah, you can see it's through the center and.
Oh, there. Okay, yeah. No, sorry. So when you come in, the ceiling is low where you come in. Is that correct?
Yeah,
and
the ceiling is about 12 feet. And then it raises to about, I think it's like 26 feet.
Alec, I think we have a similar issue with viewing angle here, and just the participants' ability to actually engage with what's being exhibited at these angles, and especially in some cases at the distances. I find it to be a little challenging. And if I were walking through this, I would probably only be focusing on these artifacts that are more at eye level, like Errol expressed earlier on. That's a really important part of exhibition design, is making sure that you are designing for human beings who have physical limitations to our ability to view artifacts and anything being exhibited. So I do appreciate kind of the magnitude of your design. I think there's something powerful about it, but I also would say that it might kind of miss the point of the viewer's enjoyment and how they might be able to take in all of these artifacts, just because of the fact that there's, again, so much of a physical challenge for your viewer to actually engage in this work based on the distance it is from them, and as well as the angle in which they're viewing.
Let me see if I understand the spatial idea. Again, I'm a little confused. It's low in the middle when you come in, and as you go right or left, it gets higher.
Mm-hmm.
So where's this section taken?
That section's taken right down the middle and back to the side.
So it's low in the middle, but it rises gently in the middle, from low to high. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's interesting how we pretty much each of these projects is sort of based to a certain extent on symmetry, and maybe it's because the space you were given was a square, perfect square, but I would think, generally speaking, if you can accept the idea that the visitation to an exhibition is a kind of journey, and you go along a path and you're encountering the objects in a way where they are connected in some way in their physical character and in their what they represent, but that there's a journey that's kind of leading somewhere, going somewhere, getting to some kind of main event, perhaps. It just seems like symmetry is the wrong strategy for that, and that maybe instead of thinking about a symmetrical balance, you should be thinking more in terms of passageway and pathway, and not worry about symmetry too much. I mean, for example, in this section here, the way it goes from low in the middle to high, why is that? Why did you do that?
I thought it would open up the areas where you were showing things. I thought it would just make it feel more accessible. And the roof is supposed to be entirely glass. So
what's entirely glass?
The entire roof piece.
Oh, really? Well, you've drawn it as though it's solid. What you should do, I mean, of course, in New Orleans, I know that don't want to get into practical here, but about the last thing on earth you could do in New Orleans is a glass ceiling. There's
this house on Jefferson I drive by a lot that is on.
Oh yeah, right. That's not a glass ceiling though. That has glass walls. That's an old church. That was a Unitarian church when it was designed.
It's a beautiful building.
Alec, could you please show, or Edson, I'm not sure who's controlling, could you please show me the section from front to, yes, okay, so the roof is pitched forward towards the entry, correct?
Yep.
And it also creates a downward slope. It creates a bit of a V toward the front as well, correct?
Yep.
Not to be too nitpicky here, but you can imagine the kind of problems you'd have getting people into this building if it were raining, right? You'd have tremendous amounts of water flowing directly to the front of the building.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you'll have you will have to have some form of gutter or something else to catch all that water, or else all of your patrons are going to be soaking wet when they walk in on a rainy day. And the only reason I bring that up is because this is a learning opportunity, but not that you couldn't achieve that, but you would have to create some form of system to remove the very large amounts of water that would be coming down. That would be creating a waterfall. So that's another thing just to remember. You want to be very aware of everything when you're designing any form of structure that's inhabited, but especially something that people are going to come for pleasure, and the last thing they want is to be inundated.
Yeah, there's an interesting, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the Orr O'Keefe Museum, which is in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's only an hour away. You should go see it. It's designed by Frank Gehry. It's a museum in a small town, which costs $60 million or so. I mean, a huge and extremely expensive building. And it's got a lot of these problems that Gehry did not solve, including V-shaped canopies over the entranceway. So it's really almost embarrassing that a world-class architect like that got so many things wrong in the building. But it's a building you should definitely, while you're a student, you should definitely go see, because Gehry is a very respected architect, and one of his buildings is very, very close by.
Great. Thank you so much, Alec.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So Olivia, are you ready?
Yep, good morning. I'm Olivia. This is my project here. My exhibit is centered around nature and our connection and interaction with the objects are focused around living things, flora and fauna, anything from ceramics with floral detailing to more realistic and abstracted sculptures of animals. But pretty much anything that reflects our perception of nature and our connection to nature in some way. So I wanted the space to be representative as well of different kind of natural spaces. I have concentric circles and staggering ceiling heights, so that as you come into the space, initially it's light and open, and then moving through the exhibit, you get deeper and deeper into it, and you reach kind of a closed off, quieter, darker room at the center, which we've been calling the inner sanctum. Then throughout the process, my idea is kind of centered around the experience of like a forest or exploring a space in nature, sort of starting at the edge of a woods where it's open and moving deeper and deeper into the center of the thicker forest. And then I also chose to include a good portion of the storage, as you can see in the front of house there, a lot of shelving, like the density of the objects and the height of the shelves give it the kind of overwhelming feeling of being a bit more closed in, but like not too overwhelming, not like claustrophobia, but a little bit more like I'm surrounded by tall trees, right? And then they're organized by ring, sort of the types of objects, the outer ring being landscapes, cityscapes, objects that are natural elements, and then representations of flora, and then seascapes and abstract landscapes, abstract objects, then representations of fauna, and then in the center in the inner sanctum, the more special objects, anything related to like tradition, ritual, religion, that shows kind of humanity's higher connection to nature.
Did you come up with this idea yourself for the objects? I mean, that was just something that is entirely on your own?
For the objects?
Well, not the objects, but the themes.
Oh, the separate sections that I just went
Flora and
over?
fauna, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
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 Okay. What's in the corners of the space?
That's all back of house space.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I know that the project was intended to focus on the interior, and that back of house was kind of put on hold. So I just have to ask, are these 4 separate back of house areas that are completely disconnected from one another?
Yes, they are disconnected.
Well, that would be a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
given the brief where we had a lot of different kinds of spaces in back of house, like offices, storage, another word I'm looking for, bringing objects into the building, like it seemed in my, they could be separate spaces. You don't need offices and like a loading dock to be next to each other necessarily.
I think in theory that's true, but as a practical matter, you know, the back of the house, you have to be able to circulate and run the building, run the institution, and these things they would be probably need connection, you know.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely just bring the
You could fix that, yeah.
a bit tighter, yeah.
Right.
Could I see that perspective again? Yes, beautiful. So I like this quite a lot, Olivia.
Thank you.
I think I'll say that I think there's still some issues with the flow of the space, and I think actually you've designed something very appealing, and I think thus far it's probably my favorite. However, if you go back to the plan view, I do think there were some opportunities missed for you to create a really good and intentional flow in the space. And I would say almost exactly where the cursor is right now, those 2 wing walls right as you enter the space, you could, and their counterparts right across from the other, you could imagine maybe putting those to an angle to indicate the initial motion through the space.
Sure.
Something like that, for example. And then I would say that you could potentially also find ways to close off other parts of the inner circles to where there's more of a forced flow and traffic is moving very uniformly through the space. And the reason I say that, even though I do really like this, is because you're so close to having hit, in my opinion, a really good way of encouraging visitors to go through this exhibit. I was going to say forcing, but I prefer the word encouraging, because of course someone can just turn around and walk in whatever direction they want. But I do believe that if you were to have enclosed some of these walls, meaning some of these connections in between these curved walls, just forcing people to only have 1, maybe 2 options for access, I think you would have achieved a really smooth space that would flow very nicely. So
Sure, yeah, less meandering in and out.
Yes, because you, and especially the line of sight when you enter, you know, you did a really good job of not creating too much height. I do still think that maybe that 3rd inner ring is potentially too tall. However, it's definitely a really good start, I think. And you could take this design and probably make this design work really well if you were to tweak it a little bit, in my opinion.
Also one, and this is related comment, that by having the concentric circles for the spaces, there's a kind of predictability about the spaces that might be slightly annoying to a visitor, that they're all the same kind of width and they're kind of the same diameter circle, and you get into the space and you think, oh yeah, this is just like the other one. This is a little wider, but it's just like the other one. But there is an interesting thing there. There's a new museum in Arkansas, quite an important museum called the Crystal Bridges, that has curved galleries, and they actually work pretty well, because as you're walking along, you can kind of you can see ahead, but you can't see all the way. So that the curved space actually does have some advantages, I think. But I think when everything is curved and everything is so symmetrical, I think in the end it might be a little bit boring. Although the section, if you could see this, I think when you're in the space, if you check the sight lines, you're not going to be able to see what you're showing in this drawing here. It's going to be like that. It's going to be blocked. So, but I think, my criticism of the design is that the spaces are too similar.
Sure. Yeah. I think the idea with the shelving as well was to kind of break up that sameness.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, you got a little bit the same problem that the other one had in some of these exhibition shelving or levels are out of sight. You can't see them. They're too tall.
Sure. Yeah, I think at that point too, with the taller shelves, it's problematic that you can't see the top shelf, definitely. But also with the limited back of house space, the way I have it set up, I did want to include more storage in the shelves, even if you maybe can't see those objects, maybe change out which items are on which shelves, so that the exhibition, everything gets seen, but just to have more places to store things as well.
Any other last comments for Olivia?
I think just going back to a kind of overall conceptual strategy, I think the real problem here is dividing the back and house into 4 separate things. I think that wouldn't work. And so you'd have to redo this to make it work.
You can easily like shrink
You could, yeah, shrink it.
remove
Right.
one of the concentric circles.
Right,
then
right,
there's a
right,
connection.
Right.
I fully agree. And I think with some minor design adjustments, this could work really nicely.
I agree. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Olivia. Do you want to just take maybe a quick 5-minute break for everyone? Let's do a quick break and then let's come back in 5 minutes.
Olivia, are you in the architecture building? Yeah, you are, huh? Yeah, that's why you're wearing a mask. I was wondering, why are you wearing a mask at home and I see you're not at home?
No, I've all these boards and everything around here. We're
Right,
definitely in the
right.
architecture studio.
Yeah. Okay, 5-minute break. Okay.
Yes, let's do a 5-minute break. See you in a bit. Thank you.
many schemes that you show a client, but then right away you'd probably go to a structural engineer and be like, we want to get rid of this column and blow a hole through.
Grant, are you there? Are you ready, Grant?
Yes, I am.
Let's just wait for Michael a little bit. Okay, let me share the screen again. Can you see my screen? Okay, Grant, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I apologize. This is still a slight work in progress, but my exhibition, as right now, is typically called Expressions, and the essential goal of this exhibition is to kind of look at masks and kind of forms and ways that we've kind of given form to like human expressions or our faces over time. So different cultural masks from different eras, but then also finding a way to compare that to like contemporary expressions with like memes, emojis, and kind of weave some sort of weave a narrative in a way that just kind of tells about how different cultures represent different different expressions or emotions, and then also how sorry, kind of speaking, but how different cultures kind of represent different expressions and emotions, and then how that's kind of changed today, in the format of memes, in the format of digital media, etc. And in terms of, there are likely going to be a few more kind of emotions that are going to be added in here, but the rooms are kind of divided or subdivided by emotions and sections. And then ideally, once I finish the perspectives, they will kind of, the rooms in themselves will also kind of reflect the emotion that they're kind of trying to suggest outside of just the work itself. So there may be a bunch of masks that are, you know, calming, or expressions that are sort of calming, but at the same time, the room will also kind of suggest something else, or suggest the expression further. And so like fear, the room that's themed fear is going to end up being a little bit more enclosed and kind of claustrophobic than Serenity. And in each of those three, where the name, where the name of the room is, there's like a courtyard in the center that will have kind of appropriate or semi-appropriate sort of foliage or something along those lines that'll kind of communicate something about the theme of the room. Here below is the plan. The bottom right is the entry area. The back of house I just didn't include in this plan because it was just something that we didn't really end up doing much with. It actually is, I don't know why I didn't take out this section, it's kind of confusing, but it is in my section below. But so the kind of idea behind this was that I wanted to have something that a lot of my designs initially for the layouts were all pretty much symmetrical. And I really, really, really wanted to break that. There was a lot of orthogonal lines going on, and I just was very tired of it. And so I wanted to try something a little bit different and kind of have these sort of like pods that you drift to and from. And you can see in the exploded axon to the right, the heights of the walls, the ceilings are 20 feet, but the walls are 10. And what's meant to happen as you enter is you're supposed to see the display cases that go above the walls, but then also additionally, this sort of courtyard spaces, those three that tower above the walls. And so it kind of suggests a starting point or suggests a place or a focal point to head to within the exhibition. And then as you go along, you'll encounter other objects that are exhibited and pedestals, and you'll sort of, like, I didn't want, because I didn't think that there was necessarily a perfect way to guide people through different emotions. So I thought that it was best to kind of let them experience them, not necessarily, like, not on a whim, but kind of run into them. And, you know, if they, and, you know, to see like the display cases, the top of there and the top of the greenhouse, and to kind of have an attraction on their own and, you know, make their own decision here. And the top, or the three layers here, the top is, the tops of the greenhouses or courtyards have glass ceilings, and then there's the roof, and then below is the base with the pedestals, which are kind of in the center of some of the rooms, and then there are built-in benching and seating that is in some of the rooms as well. And then there are the courtyards, which are surrounded by display, like tall display case shelving. And then below we have the sections. I am very sorry that I didn't put section cuts in, but I'll just briefly draw them on top of the plan. But I don't know if you can see the line that I drew above. That is the first section. And then the second section is essentially this. Oh, wait. But yeah, and there's the second section there below. Sorry, I didn't have to include those. But yeah, the courtyard spaces are still also going to change a little bit. I'm not, well, actually have cacti, but it's just the CAD blocks that I had and I decided to populate with. But I wanted to find a way to kind of communicate either fear or serenity. Like, so in Serenity, that room as of right now has like a koi pond, which I thought was kind of funny, and I'll be putting bamboo and kind of some very calming foliage. Fear is likely going to have a lot of kind of very kind of cold or sort of perhaps even like dead plants or foliage, but and things that kind of just evoke that emotion as well, because I wanted the whole space in addition to the mask to kind of communicate that. And sadly, you cannot tell that from the perspectives because they are currently not populated because I've been short on time from various some circumstances. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can explain here. I think that's all.
Are the courtyards are the surrounds glass, or are those?
Yeah, they're glass and you can see into them. Yeah. Yeah, so the court, I still have to put in the glass. Yeah. And it was something that I just had to do once I populate it and put in put in all the figures and the CAD blocks. But yeah, so the courtyards are going to be glass, and then the main three will be enterable. And then in terms of doorways, I chose to leave everything open, except for the entryway has a door, but otherwise, everything just flows through because I was kind of at like I was a bit conflicted about if I wanted to have you kind of be enclosed in this space. Obviously, because like if you are experiencing, some emotion, if you see outside of it, you could potentially be distracted. But the main sort of three spaces, like the three focal points, they don't necessarily really interact with each other unless you're looking up. And so, like if you look into a neighboring room, you won't, you most likely won't get pulled into it, the doorway. But there are lots of entrances in between, so you're meant to kind of weave in and out and experience the different emotions and different masks and expressions.
And is there a back of house area anywhere?
Yeah, the back of house is not included in this plan, but it's at the top of this plan view here, just up above. I took it off because we just had it patched off.
Got it.
Errol, I'm sorry, you're mute.
Can you hear me? Can
Yep.
you hear me? Yeah, I've
Okay.
lost the connection. I've re-entered the meeting number, and I've clicked on the launch meeting, and nothing is showing up. I don't know what happened. I lost the whole thing. I can hear you, but I can't see anybody. Let me. Maybe it's hit somewhere. Hold on. Huh? Weird.
Well, Grant, I think that similar to some of your peers, I think there's a factor, there's a little bit of an overwhelming factor to this layout. It feels far too kind of just, I would say dynamic, but not necessarily in the positive sense of the word. It might be a little too hectic. I can't imagine myself visiting this exhibit and actually seeing everything without a guide or without very literal signage. And so I think that there's quite a lot of small spaces that feel very disconnected from one another. And I would love to see some perspective shots just to try and understand a little more how this space is realized. But it feels almost like a maze instead of an exhibit. And I don't know if that is what you were going for, but unfortunately, that's how it appears to me. I want to say I love the concept of expressions. I think it's a wonderful concept, and I think it would make for a wonderful exhibit. However, the basis of your design being these courtyards and these smaller rooms that are trying to evoke emotion, I think that's a wonderful idea. I actually think that's maybe one of the best ideas so far in terms of concept, but execution wise, very, very difficult to navigate through this space. And I would go out on a limb and say, I don't know if anybody would actually be able to see everything in this exhibit without having to backtrack or ask for help. It's an extremely confusing floor plan. But I do want to commend you for the concept, because I love the concept of expression and trying to evoke those feelings through architecture, which is a really beautiful thing that a good architect can do. So I would just suggest that you try to envision yourself walking through this. I have a little bit of experience in exhibition design. I used to work in the scenic world, and I would work on museums and concert stages and events spaces. And one of my mentors told me something that still to this day I use in all of my work, and it's to be taken with a grain of salt. But if you were to imagine pouring water into the entry, and where's the water going to flow? And the places the water flows the most easily are probably the places that the humans will walk, and that you'll have physical traffic through that space. So if we were to pour water through your model, it would go everywhere all at once. And so again, it's not to be taken literally. It's more of a more figurative advice, but it just feels a little too busy, and I don't know if it's sensical in terms of exhibiting artwork, really.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got reconnected. I lost my connection, and I just restart my computer, and now I've got it back.
Are you able to see it?
I heard what you were saying, and this is the first time I'm seeing the plan. But I would completely agree with just a quick. There's too much going on, but I think the idea of using a repeating element like this is potentially, a workable idea. But it's that you might get a little bit tired of circles by the time you got through this.
So Errol, you're able to see the plan. Would you like to see?
Now I can see it. Yes.
Okay. Here's the axon.
Mm-hmm. It's got a kind of formal interest about it for sure, and I think that comes from, using a repeating element, which is very typical and common in architecture, and varying the size and scale of the elements. All that, those are things that architects do all the time to achieve a plan. But I think, as was said, I think the actual experience of negotiating this would be somewhat overwhelming. You'd get lost pretty quickly, I think.
Thank you so much, Grant.
Yep, thank you.
We have Gabby next.
Hi. So, sorry, let me just get this set up. So my exhibition is titled Abstraction of the Human Form. And before I get into my design concept, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about my inspiration. So when I was first introduced to architecture, I did it through a pre-college program through the University of Michigan. And we went on a day trip to Toledo, Ohio, and visited the glass pavilion at the Toledo Museum of Art. And I remember it was my first time that I actually looked at architecture in a critical lens versus just appreciation. And so I knew I always kind of wanted to create something that was inspired by that. And then I looked up the Hiroshi Senju Museum in Tokyo, Japan. And it also has a lot of similar design elements such as glass, curved walls, and it brings a lot of sunlight and nature in. So I decided to take this and use that as a framework for my exhibition. And I wanted to include modern art in it to complement the architecture. So I chose the English artist Henry Moore. He's known for his abstract sculptures that replicate the human form, and some of them are more similar to an actual person, and some of them are so abstracted that you wouldn't know it was an abstraction of a person had you just seen the only like that sculpture. And he actually has a quote of "Sculpture is an art of the open air. Daylight, sunlight is necessary to it. And for me, the best setting and complement is nature." So with all of that, this is my design concept. It's very open concept and has a lot of curves to create a nice flow of movement throughout it. And I brought in a lot of clean lines and a very light and inviting color palette. And the entrance of it is where, when you first walk in, it's much more of a realistic and human-like sculptures that he's done. And then as you walk into the space farther, it starts to become more abstracted. And the idea is that it becomes so abstracted that the building itself becomes another abstracted form of those sculptures, to the point where once you're completely in the back of the space, the wall at the very end is curved and is all glass, as you can see on the plan in the left bottom hand corner. And it's supposed to make the visitor feel almost a part of the exhibition itself. So I also included, I think it's at the very bottom of the last section, but little spaces in the wall where you can actually sit in and feel like you are a part of the space and get the entire experience of it all.
Can we see the perspectives? Gabby, can you describe the ceiling in this shot here?
Yes. So I put in a tray ceiling here because I wanted it to still have high ceilings, but not feel as plain on top. And I think it provides a nice sense of space in an intimate feel that isn't overwhelming.
And those are glass walls that have
Yes.
that curvature?
Are they opaque or translucent, transparent?
They are mostly opaque. I originally thought of putting in trees into it, but as I was putting them in, it looked kind of busy, and I'm not sure, to be completely honest. I am still, will probably go back and tweak it a little bit, because I did want to hear a little bit of feedback on that and all of your opinions on that.
Are these like straight ahead where you curve right above where you're right there, that where your cursor is? Is that supposed to be a Henry Moore kind of, I mean, what is that?
It's one of his sculptures, and I forget the title off the top of my head, but it's supposed to replicate two people, but it's so abstracted that it doesn't really look like that.
That's a fairly accurate representation of the piece.
Yes.
Is that a fairly accurate representation of the piece?
Yes, I'd say so.
I don't know that particular piece. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I drew actually right over the artifact in Rhino, so all of the lines should be exact.
I like this a lot. I feel like this is, it's very simple. And if you wouldn't mind, Edson, could you go to the plan view? I really appreciate the simplicity of it. I love that you walk in to the space and you are forced into the exhibition, so to speak, but you still have breathing room and space in that foyer area. I think it's a great opportunity to display additional works while also showing folks that are entering that is not the exhibit, so to speak. So people will enter this space and they will already be inundated with what they're expecting to be inundated with, which would be, works of art and different pieces and relics. However, you can tell that there's one direction and one direction only. I also really like that the glass partitions that you've put into the space dictate flow really well, in my opinion. Inside of those glass partitions, you almost have this like main event appeal to where, you know, you could potentially have one of the more impressive or more well-known pieces within that space. And I also just feel like this is a really good example. Of course, there's refinement that could be made, but I think this is a really good example of an individual entering a space without knowing what the space will look like before they get there, and having a very clear understanding of where to go and how to move through the building. So I think this is a job well done. I also really love the way that you formed those glass walls or panels. I'm not sure if they extend to the ceiling or not, but I think it's really beautiful. And I feel like there seems to be quite a literal pull from your example, which I would urge you to just try and let the people or the pieces that inspire you just inspire you. Try not to be too literal in your representation of your inspiration. As designers, we all care quite a lot about our designs being our designs. And so I think it's really important to make sure that when you are representing someone or something that inspired you, that you do it in a very unique way. That is obvious. But other than that, I think this is a really nice design, and I think it would work quite well.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Are the rectangular, I mean, it looks like when you enter, you're kind of entering in one big room. And no, not there. I mean, when you go from that room, you're going into a big space that has an object, two curvilinear objects in it. What about the things that are in the corner? There's a rectangular space on the left. What is that?
That actually is supposed to be an extruded wall. I did not catch that. But that,
what kind of wall?
Yeah, it should be the same height as the other walls next to it.
What is it? Is it like a room in behind the wall? What is that?
That's a part of the back of house.
Oh, okay. So it's not part of the exhibition space. So
Yes.
the exhibition space that we would enter is, I mean, I think really your drawing should be just of that. It should not show the back of house stuff. I mean, because on the right-hand side, there's a wall also, right? What is that? That's back of house stuff too?
Yes.
No, I mean, that's a little bit of a problem, as we mentioned before, the back of house being in a fairly small exhibition space like this, to have those separated, probably a little bit of a strange idea. But I think one of the things, and I guess it's the same thing that you were saying, is that you walk in, and what I kind of like is, even though we were saying about some of the other ones about having a kind of prescribed path that you follow, this one you actually enter into a room and you can kind of go where you want. It's kind of nice, you know. And is the big curvilinear object, that's made of glass, isn't it?
Yes.
But clear glass or frosted glass?
Clear glass.
Clear. I mean, you should draw it that way. You know,
Okay.
I don't think it would work as a clear glass. I think it would be, I mean, conceivably, but it strikes me as a little bit odd because these pieces would be, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure that would work very well. And there's quite a bit of space in between the inner layer and the outer layer. Can someone go in there? No.
Yes, there's over 6 feet of room there between there, so people can walk around.
Well, 6 feet is very narrow. It's just like that's like a double width corridor, so it's not very roomy, really, you know. And then you've got the kind of dead ends where the space becomes extremely narrow. That just wouldn't work, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if sorry.
So go ahead.
I'm not sure of the exact measurement of it. I just know that all of the spaces where people are walking are minimum 6, but I could double check that.
I don't think so, but maybe. But I think that the main thing is, and as a kind of, given the realities of the dimensions of the exhibition space and in general, I mean, here's one where you kind of come into a room and you can kind of walk around anywhere you want. So it's probably not such a bad idea, because in the end, it's not a very big space. I mean, what's the dimension? What's the overall width?
The overall width is 120 feet.
120. Oh, it's pretty big. Yeah. It doesn't look, that does not look right. It doesn't look like it's that big, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I really like Errol's feedback, and I think I am actually a little confused as well now that after Errol said that. Are all of these pieces to scale? All of the pieces that you're exhibiting in this?
Yes.
So these are large. These are very large pieces. Okay.
They're very large pieces. Yes.
I really do. I really love how you created, and I had assumed that these walls were just not extruded in the model. So that made sense to me, but I really do like how, this is a good example of when less is more, because you can really, like Errol said, you can walk into the space and it's going to feel like this big grand room, especially if that glass is transparent and people can see through it and see where they're going. Yet you've still managed to design a space that is very indicative, very inducive of a positive flow. Most people will go in the same direction through that room. However, it's such a clean and clear space that people can navigate however they want, while still being able to focus on the next place they want to go and how they can also leave the exhibit. So I do like this quite a lot. My only one my one qualm with it after just sitting with it for a little longer, and I think Errol mentioned this too, there seems to be quite a significant amount of back of house space, and it seems to be that disconnection seems to be odd based on the choices you made with having quite an open concept. It seems to me like it would have made sense to have the back of house area maybe be more congruent instead of separated like that, just because your concept was so open that you had the opportunity to do that. But I like this quite a lot. I think it's good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby.
Okay.
And we have our last but not the least. We have Catherine. Catherine?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So when I was trying to think of a theme for this gallery and archival space, I wanted to find something that had a really direct impact on the New Orleans community. The surrounding area doesn't really influence the plan necessarily and the design of the building, but its location in general. In New Orleans, a city with a pretty vibrant Vietnamese community, made me want to go in that direction, looking towards a community like, okay, that was not a full, there was supposed to be a period there somewhere, but basically, so once I honed in on the Vietnamese community, because they don't have many communal meeting areas, I decided I wanted this to be a place to hold their items as an archival space, but also a gallery to celebrate the art and the history of the community. And then also as a meeting space to be able to gather and have these big events every year. And so as I started to explore their history, there's a really interesting progression. A lot of Vietnamese in New Orleans are Catholic, and so they originated in North Vietnam. And so starting at the Cold War, they moved to the South, and then after the Vietnam War, they moved they just dispersed, and then focusing on New Orleans. So this is kind of getting to my concept diagram, moving to New Orleans, and then again being displaced after Katrina, and then looking at where we are now. And so that kind of moves throughout the edge of the space, but then I wanted a big chunk of it to be a meeting space so that there's a dual use. There can be temporary gallery walls put up, but then it also can just be for holding events and gathering of people. So within this idea of all these interconnecting stories, I honed in on a woven theme and specifically resilience. And so thinking about how these different stories weave together, I fell on this pattern with the hexagons, with the three tri-directional weaving. And then from that, stripped down a lot of the walls so that it felt open, but then continuing those lines with benches, seating area. I wanted a lot of seating area for the purpose of it being a meeting space. And then in the back, I have the archive space, and then the hatch marks indicate the back of house. And then I just want to point out, or actually it'll come up on another image. Oh, actually, Edson, do you mind going to the axon? So I felt like the theme of the weaving got kind of lost in the floor plan. And so I revisited that same hexagonal weaving through this ceiling decor. And so I just thought this would help for reference moving into the sections with those hexagonal drop ceilings within different sections to kind of help separate those spaces. So that's kind of highlighted more in the sections with that back of house, shelving, and then seeing where that ceiling gets cut off. And then we can keep, or I don't know how long you guys want to stay on each of them. So, yep, this is the perspective. And then one other detail that I didn't point out before was that because I wanted this to be a place where it felt comfortable and that element of transparency, I think sometimes with archives, it's very closed off. You're taking a group's items for safekeeping, but then they're never seen again. And so I wanted to minimize that. And so still have that archive section split up, but then have these glass panels on the walls so that you can see through, there's this play between both sides so that it's not a completely isolated space. So yeah, I didn't get around to hatching or shading everything, but hopefully that first one helps to distinguish the design on the top.
Well, I probably should know this, but is the Vietnamese community known for its weaving?
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of different ways. Textiles, they have a lot of really beautiful woven fabrics in that sense. And then also,
I wasn't aware of that, but that's interesting.
Catherine, is there a reason you chose for the ceiling feature, which I do think is, conceptually speaking, very interesting. However, in terms of the execution, what prompted you to create that rigidity in the ceiling structure as opposed to something more fluid and more woven?
Well, I already had that hexagonal pattern on the floor plan, and I felt like that was kind of rigid. And so that was one aspect. I think also the curves, I felt like maybe fabricating it down the line might make it more complicated. And then also just as the roof actually just came out of me playing around with Rhino and how this might look. And so it was very much a reflection of like me learning as I was going. And so I happened to just be using surfaces. And so that in that sense also kind of guided my decisions.
Well, as a fabricator who's worked with hundreds of architects, I appreciate you thinking about us in your design process. However, I do want to say, even though I agree that this would be an easier fabrication, I think you could have had a chance to be really impactful with a really fluid and more traditionally woven ceiling feature. Yeah, I think that kind of fluidity would translate extremely well. But again, I think, obviously always room for improvement, and that'll be the case throughout your entire time in school. But the concept is great, I think, for that ceiling feature. And I think just a slightly different approach to the execution could have made that really, really impactful.
I think you have to also have to watch this. Don't take this wrong, but I mean, the unintended associations. I mean, this looks like air conditioning duct work.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, you're
so
totally right.
I really admire the experimentation. I really think that's great. But I think that as if you'd had a little bit longer, I mean, I think you might say, okay, I tried that. That doesn't work. Let me try something else. So, as a designer, you really, I think one of the things we tend to overlook is the importance of being able to come up with a lot of ideas and pick, present yourself with choices. And, it's design is tricky because, there's nothing there. You have to imagine everything. You have to imagine the layout. You imagine materials, the circulation, all these things. So, the ability to generate ways that this might look, the way it might be organized, the way it would look, it's really important when you're just beginning and certainly throughout your whole career to be able to generate a lot of ideas. And I'm sure, Michael, when you're working with people, you no idea goes unchallenged. You've got to try a whole bunch of things to see what works best. So, but what I admire in your scheme is not so much the solution, but the degree to which you've kind of worked the thing out a little bit. I mean, I don't really like it, so, because of what I said, but don't take that personally. I think what I do admire in your scheme is the desire to kind of work the thing out in some way to see where it's going to lead you, pretty good.
Yeah, and I will say with the air conditioning, that is
Sorry,
where
that was mean
no, it's so true, and I kind of felt the same way, but I was in too deep, and that's the beauty of doing these perspectives.
Yeah,
is that
yeah. Well,
in the axon, I thought it looked really cool abstracted, but in the perspective, it's totally different.
Well, you should put a bunch of registers on it, and you'd said, "Oh, it is the air conditioning. Thank you for noticing." I like this drawing. I like the way you've layered this axon, and when you see the thing that you did at the top, it looks really good. It's just when you blow it up, it looks a little, as I say, it looks a little utilitarian. But I think there's a nice the woven character that you're pursuing that is worth looking at, and it's a good idea.
Thank you.
I agree completely. I think conceptually speaking, this is a really wonderful project.
Yes, yes.
And I just love that there was so much attention to the theme and the concept. And it's
Right.
very clear that you paid attention to that and you really ran with it.
Yeah.
And I will say, even though I agree with Errol that I don't love it as a package, I really appreciate all of the bits and pieces. And I especially like that viewing section from wall to wall that you applied. I think that's really smart. And I think that that is,
Yes, lovely. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's something that if you were doing this project in the real world, I think you'd have a lot of positive feedback from your client as it relates to the ability for the people coming to this exhibit to be intrigued by what's next. And you're giving them a taste of what's next by having that very small but very intentional viewing space from exhibit to exhibit. And so I'm not crazy about it as a package, but I think technically and conceptually it's very good.
Yeah, what I like about it is you know, I agree with Mike saying, I really don't like the scheme, but your ability to look at all the different ramifications of your idea suggests to me that if you had to throw this out and start over, you could do it again. You know, and I really like that. That is, and you know, in the world of architecture, we're working architects don't really work by themselves very much. You'd maybe do it a little bit when you're working on the thing, but once the project gets going, it's a team effort. You know, you're working with other people and being able to generate different ideas and to be able to draw them and to be able to discuss them that's just so much a part of what the architectural assignment is. And I think what you've done here indicates an ability and willingness to do these things, even if you don't get it right the first time. Do another one. You know, it's I love it. Really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. So that's the last of our presentations for today. Errol, Michael, do you want to maybe say some final words or some final encouragement to the students before we end?
I would just say that y'all should be proud of yourselves for the work you've done. Always continue to build upon past work. I think that that's true in any design-oriented profession where you're expected to be creative and practical at the same time. So always build upon past projects, try to continually improve, and just remember that everything said today was professional, not personal. And even the models and projects that that myself and Errol tended to like more, you know, we are here to critique you. So just remember that and always try to improve. That's it.
Yeah, the one thing I would say really is not about the work so much, because I agree with what Michael is saying very much, but you need to take what you've studied in this kind of exercise and in general what you're doing, and take it out into the real world and critique the stuff around you. How many of you have been to the New Orleans Museum of Art? I see a couple of people nodding. You all should go, you know, everybody. And then I would say, if you have access to, or a friend who has a car, you should get in the car and drive to Biloxi and see the and that's pronounced it's pronounced it's spelled O-H-R, Or Museum. It's a museum of pottery and other things, has quite a bit of exhibition space. And it's designed by Frank Gehry. I mean, and it shows you that even the greatest architects can screw up royally from time to time. And where I thought somebody did, I've forgotten who it was, it had the very curvy plan. Who was that? Was anybody from Los Angeles? Nobody from Los Angeles. Where
I am.
You are?
Mm-hmm.
Have you been following the proposal of the new LACMA?
No, I haven't seen it,
You know
but
what,
I'm going to look it up right now.
You know what LACMA is?
I know what LACMA is.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. Well, it's a huge project. I mean, really big, you know, and they had this really interesting idea of how to display works that have been created a wide range of time. So that's an important thing. So in other words, when you're going to places or when you're looking at things in magazines, analyze them. You know, you have to function. Part of our role as designers is we have to function as a critic. You've got to be able to critically analyze and decipher what it is you're looking at and experiencing, and then you can, I hope, apply that to your own work in the future. Architecture is a lifetime project. So get out there and see stuff and use what you have encountered. You know, I mean, it's great to do these projects because, you know, they're basically exercises in criticism. You know, how you take an idea, you critique the idea, you find a solution for it, and then you do that, and then that gets criticized, because the architect really has to function in 4 roles. You have to create, so you're the creator, you have to make the thing up to begin with, and then you have to edit it, and then you have to be the critic, and then you have to be the person who executes it, or really the 3 roles, I guess. So, you know, be aware of your responsibilities in each of these roles, and good luck to you. It's quite a journey, I can tell you.
Let us thank our guest reviewers again, Errol and
Yes,
Michael.
good to meet you all.
We really appreciate all of your feedback and your encouragement. So hopefully we'll be able to bump into each other in the corridor, you know, once.
Yes. Yeah.
But we really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Yes. Good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. Bye.
Thank you.
So students,
Thank you.
please stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.